Hi there, I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. If you're feeling drained, hesitant, stuck in self-doubt, or you just have a case of the vlogs, the Art of Badassery podcast is here to help you unleash your mojo once and for all. We'll provide you with tips, techniques, and real-life examples of how you can kick ass in all areas of your life. You'll learn how to flex your mental muscles, rise above fears, and turn setbacks into superpowers. So let's enter the dojo and let's get to work. Welcome everyone to the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer, and today I have a very special guest. We're going to talk about holistic wealth and spiritual leadership with Lee Jacobs. Welcome Lee Jacobs to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited you're here because I've been wanting to talk about wealth and money. But first, I'm going to read a little bit about Lee. Lee is an international author and speaker specializing in holistic wealth, spiritual leadership, and I love this, highest health. She's been mentoring globally for over 2 decades for corporate, direct sales, entrepreneurial, and home-based businesses. Lee has published 3 books, owned a fitness studio, had a coaching business, and built one of the largest direct sales businesses globally. Lee holds her Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Toxicology as well as her MBA. She's also a certified yoga and Pilates instructor and a clinical nutritionist. Lee, we have that in common. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm so inspired for, I don't even know how we're going to maintain this conversation, but yes, I feel we have so much in common.
Absolutely. I was excited to see that we are on the same speaker roster. Loud Management, who is now my new speaker management company, and Lee's as well. So I was so excited that we were both on this and that we can support each other in this journey.
For sure.
I knew that I wanted to speak about wealth because I have this very strong belief that when women in this world have more wealth, have more power, that the world will be a better place. We will take care of more. People will be supported. The planet will be cared for. I truly believe this. So I want more women to get more wealth, whatever that means.
Exactly.
And you bring a different spin on this, right? You talk about holistic wealth. So what does that mean to you?
I think it was the moment where I had a decent weekly revenue that took care of everything and I could go on vacations. I had the freedom. There was something in me that was like, is my foundation authentic to my values? And we all get caught up in those patterns where we're taking better care of our business than we are of ourselves. And I think I had a little bit of an aha moment where I'm like, there's got to be a next level of wealth. That's not just at a superficial level, but it's like deep integrity and then manifesting that prosperity that is so who we are. And I was like, I'm up for this challenge. Like, I need to figure out, because the superficial success is not that hard to get if you work hard. But we want it to feel deeply true to who we are because we want to be on our soul's true path. And we don't often take the time to figure out what that feels like. And feeling really is the secret. So we know when we're making money in a way that doesn't feel deeply authentic, but we're just really good at our job. And I remember I had an author, she has a new book coming out. Her name's Tammy Keys. And I had her speak at one of my events. And she said, there's many people who are so good at something they don't love. Imagine how great they would be at something they loved. And I remember hearing that and being, a lot of women, we're just good at multitasking. We're really good at a lot of things, but it isn't necessarily opening our soul and activating our auric field to a level where we can move mountains.
Okay. So can you bring us back? What were you doing at the time? What felt out of alignment? Like, really walk us through a little bit of that so we can really understand how you came to this work.
Yeah, so I was working for many corporate companies. One of my last companies was L'Oreal in Canada. I traveled a lot. My dad had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he needed someone to take him to all of his appointments. But I was like, no, I'm on this succession plan to move to Paris. And I was so focused on my career. But I remember I couldn't take him to an appointment because I wasn't allowed to miss a meeting. And that day transformed my world. I was like, well, you only live once. And I'm like, this can't be it.
Right.
Like, what am I chasing here? The
Right.
next title, but it's never going to be enough because we're programmed to always seek more. Nothing is ever enough. So I had a little bit of an aha moment, 27, 28 at the time. And I just was like, there's got to be something more. Because even though I'm making good money and I've got the car and I've got every expense is paid, something feels not right. And sometimes you can't language what that is when everybody else around you, especially in your social circle or at my age, everyone's doing the same thing. So you're like, it must be good because everyone else is on this path. We often don't take a second to be like, but is this my path?
Oh, I've had
And it was, yeah, it was a passion planner. And I remember it was my birth date for the next year that I was going to pursue my next chapter.
I read somewhere that you retired at age 35. So if you're talking about you were like 28 at the time.
So that was step one into exploring entrepreneurship. For me, I just knew that freedom was such a value. And this is why it's so important to know our deep values. And what are our top three values? And for me, health, family, and freedom are my three big ones. So if I don't feel free, I will not do my best work. And so I was like, okay, maybe the next level is trying entrepreneurship. And it's not for everybody because it comes with ups and downs and you never know what's next. And so you definitely need solid feet to do entrepreneurship. But
Yes.
I was young and I don't have dependents. So I thought, why not give it a whirl? So that was my entrance into the world of entrepreneurship and learning how to goal set, learning about my values, learning about all of the tools we hear about, like vision boarding, visualization. Like, I never was taught to do that in my past role.
Nobody really is in school or
No,
job.
nobody cared enough. They just wanted you to perform and get stuff out of you. But I was like, no, this doesn't. And I've always been in a mentorship management role where responsible for people. And I was like, I'm doing them a disservice if I just care about their transactional performance. It's as if we're living in this transactional abyss, but it doesn't work anymore because people are being awakened at the soul level to such a level where, but they're not sure what to do because, the way I'm living right now is not feeling right anymore. Not necessarily wrong, but I've graduated, but I'm not sure what to do. What is the next step? What should I do so people are waking up especially women. And I know all the women that I work with are feeling the same way. It's as if we're at the bottom of a new mountain. We peaked out in the transactional world. We know what our skills are. We're going to bring them with us. But it's time for a much higher, deeper level of living that a lot of us have not been given permission to be because we've tried to package ourselves in this looking good. I'm so successful. Here's all of the great things so I can put on Instagram or social media, but there's no depth to that. So at one point we feel soul starved and now we're being shaken. I like to say we're being crushed into fine wine so that our authentic voice, our true soul, our self-expression, now it's about let out your music for why you're really here and stop trying to fit into a mold that you no longer fit into.
It's so interesting because I'm 48 and a lot of women around me in that range have literally started to recreate their careers. I'm talking
Love
like
it.
go back to school, become therapists, become coaches, start businesses. Like so many people I know directly. Is that what you're talking about here?
Yeah. And there's a quote from Carl Jung that says, what is true in the morning of your life will become a lie in the afternoon. And so it's not that how we were living with dads. It's just we graduated and I'm 49 and I think it's happening younger to women.
Yeah.
younger and younger. I think a lot of us are waking up to deeper questions like, why am I really here? Am I living my true potential? Am I showing the world the real me? Or am I trying to fit into what I think is the map to become a published author, to become an international speaker? And if we're trying to follow the masses, it just will not work anymore. There is this very unique pivot point in time where you either need to fully be you and authentically let yourself fully shine, or your life will be dull and it will wreck around you and you won't be able to keep it alive.
You mentioned that in your podcast that I was just listening to. The Formula for Peaceful Prosperity was the title, which I was immediately drawn to. And you said that a lot of us are awakening to this new paradigm. And when that happens, a lot of times things can crumble around you. Things start to fall away, whether that be relationships or jobs or what else? What are you seeing in people that work with you? What's
Yeah, a lot of women our age are like, my life crisis.
yeah.
Yes. And this is where it's now for those who really are the leaders of the next era. I'm talking the next 10 to 20 years. We must serve from a place of integrity, authenticity, heart, and wisdom. So, what isn't authentic and in integrity with who we really are, it's going to fall apart. So, we won't even have to do much. If we're in a relationship or we have friendship that is not healthy for us, it's going to crumble, whether you want to or not. And so, I like to say to people now, do the work, take the time to have a little more solitude, to meditate, to pray, to have more time alone. This is the time to get to know who you really are, not the fake you, not the you that has shown up in the physical world because you think that's what people want. Don't be afraid to fail, to try things, to let people down sometimes. Right now, bodies are falling apart if we're not allowing our true expression to come out. It's almost like the rebirthing phase of friendships, relationships, careers, fitness. A lot of women that were more on the ballet and yoga side are now like heavy lifting and doing black belts, and they're wanting to experience their full power. So they're being drawn to more powerful new ways of using their body. So I'm finding a lot of people are more experimental right now. But it doesn't matter about age, but it is a rebirth time. And it is also a time for us to really mother ourselves because a lot of us will be in roles of global leadership for this new era because people need support. People need help. They don't know who to talk to when they feel like the world is falling apart because they still want to look the part. So it's a vulnerable place to be right now where we need to have the heart and the kindness and the authentic, unconditional love for people with no judgment, but allow them to be those, like, I feel like that is something you are too. There's something about your field where people feel comfortable just being themselves with you. And those are the women that need to be on this stage and need to be mentoring.
Okay. So a bunch of themes that you're hitting on, which I think it's all wrapped up in your term of spiritual leadership.
Yes. And the key message that I hope people will take away from our conversation is before we could do a quick meditation, go to a yoga class or the gym, and in our mind, that's good. Do a little journaling. But it was very siloed. It was like, okay, morning meditation, evening journaling. Whereas now it's about integration. And our spiritual practice cannot take a backseat to business. It won't, because what's going to happen, and this is the women that I work with is happening, they'll plateau out because they won't have the inner power to get to the next level or to hold space for the next level of success. They will get stuck. The big focus right now is the inner spiritual practice every day. And it doesn't have to be like, some people are like, oh, well, is that like airy fairy? Or I like to keep it very simple: meditation or prayer, movement, visualization. Those are three key things and breath work.
Great. I do all four of those things every single morning. And I preach about it on this podcast all the time. Having a powerful morning routine. And obviously, you can do it anytime throughout the day. But I just think if for most of us, if you don't do it in the morning, there's so many excuses that will come throughout the day where you just put it aside and be like later and then never
Yeah.
get done.
There will be such fast momentum for the women who actually commit to that practice. Like they will see radical changes in their exterior world if they commit to that right now. There is an energy where if you focus on those internal practices, the inner sanctuary work, it's like going to the inner gym, the outside world will shift very quickly.
I started to really go deep into these meditations, much deeper than I ever had in the last year and a half. All of a sudden, things started to shift, not blatantly, but we got kicked out of our home of 9 years. Our landlord wanted the place back. And I was like, okay, this doesn't feel like a good thing. Well, life is getting better. But I just held on to that belief that sometimes things have to fall away in order to move forward and whatever that's going to look like. And I'm still in this new home that I know is not the place. 3 weeks ago, the LA fires are burning down this town. And I'm like, am I getting pushed further and further away from what I thought was what I really want? Anyway, that's something I'm still processing and working through. But using these beliefs and this type of framework, it does help me just think not everything that seems bad is necessarily bad in the long run.
For sure. And I think right now I have experienced the same thing trying to make my home in a certain town and really, but then it just wasn't flowing. And I'm like, but I have the drive and the motivation. So I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I forgot to do a little surrender and to check in and be like, what if the universe is giving me clues and I'm so rigid that I'm not honoring that? And then I surrendered and it moved me. And it could be temporary, but I think right now we are getting a lot of memos. So we just have to stay fluid and trust, like you were saying, it's this time of surrender for everybody for different reasons, but we're being rejigged and some of the things have to fall away and we don't know what's coming, but we have to trust that it is for our higher self to lead now.
Great. So I have so many questions. Again, in your podcast that I was listening to and in this conversation, you're referring to this new era. So can you share what you mean by that specifically? And also, where did this knowledge come from? What is your background in spiritual philosophies?
I think it's just intuitive to me. I just lead with heart. And I think when we have really active heart centers, we tend to be more intuitive. We tend to be able to connect with higher messages easier. Sometimes we're molded out of that. If we overdevelop the intellect, and then we might not necessarily make the choices that are in our best interest because our intellect keeps us stuck. I have always been drawn to spiritual people and spiritual teachers. And I remember when I was 6, I had a nun as a teacher and she invited me to her home and she had this prayer room and there was this sense of peace in there. And I was so young, but there was just it felt so comfortable. And I just was like, even at that young age, I'm like, there's something about this. And then I read a book called The Life You Were Born to Live by Dan Millman.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever heard of that book? Yeah. So this one is I think there's some astrology in there, but you put your birth date, birth year, and it aligns you with your soul purpose. I knew that was my path, but I think it took until my 40s to be like, well, how do you make a career out of this? Because yes, I'm a yoga teacher. Yes, I can teach meditation and breath work, but some people are not as called to, or their purpose isn't to do one siloed approach. It's like, how can we now holistically mentor and use these tools, but how do we share our voice and our self-expression? And also, like you said, build a career out of it because we do need money.
Yes, which is what I want to get into now. A lot of our listeners are in corporate jobs, whether they love them or they feel like they're in the grind, but money makes the world go round. We need money. As much as I understand like what holistic wealth means, as far as like having the time and the values and all of that, we still need money. How do you coach your students through building financial wealth and at the same time, this idea of holistic wealth?
So I take a multifaceted approach, and that actually goes very hand in hand with spiritual development, because a lot of us are programmed and conditioned to chase money from a place of not feeling secure. So our first energy center has trauma. We all have some. But there is this innate conditioning of how we're raised where we don't feel secure unless we have a certain amount tangible on the outside. But it never comes, because even when we make 6, 7 figures, it's still not enough. We're on this great dash to something, but what we're really looking to do is that inner child within us wants to feel secure. And so building holistic wealth is really from a place of feeling the security and the confidence and the anchoring, even without that exterior. And then you're not on a chase. It's more of a creative process. That's the difference. And it's 2 different lifestyles. One is filled with hustle, anxiety, pressure. I'm never good enough. I'm always comparing myself. I'm always competing. I feel envy all the time. And one is peaceful prosperity. You have a knowing of your greatness, that you are worthy of amazing abundance, and that you wouldn't be put here if you didn't have the gifts and skills to be able to create that.
Wow. Is that part of the formula for peaceful prosperity?
It's a journey. My book, Beautiful Money, gives like a 4-week kind of boot camp of it, but it is an intro to, there is a mixture, right? Because we have to understand the tangible physical rules of money and understand how it works and be smart and make good decisions. But we also have to have the inner power, the inner strength, and the belief that we are secure whether we see money or not.
How do you do that? So for folks that are like, okay, I get it, but I want the tangible how to. How do you do that?
It is important to see the patterning in our own life. Like for me, it is in the DNA as well. Like I come from, my heritage is Ukrainian, and the generations before me were very misplaced a lot because of war. And so they say up to the 10 generations above you, you carry the trauma in the DNA.
Wow.
So from a young age, I always felt a fear of losing security. I don't know where it came from. I had a very stable childhood. My dad was a lawyer. There was no physical reason for why I felt that, but this fear of I don't have enough to feel secure. And so my life became addicted to success, addicted to being ambitious. I was seeking identity from the doing. And then I became like a robot. Yeah, I'll do a good job. And people would put their stuff on me, right? They know I do, and I'm so dependable and responsible. But unfortunately, it came from a harmful place to my own soul, because I felt like a transactional thing, not human. And if I don't fix that, I'm never going to attract the prosperity in a healthy way. I'm going to have to pimp myself out in a way that isn't me and pretend I'm like this male energy hustler. If I want to be authentic to who I am, I better integrate myself. And you can't do that without the inner practices. So they go hand in hand now. You could fake it. You could fake it before, but I will share in this new era. And a lot of women are feeling they just don't know how to word it, but we're in a new era for business, for living. You can't fake it anymore. You have to just be very transparent, very real with yourself, and be like, what are my issues? What have I been detouring around? What are the patterns in my life? There's women who they always attract the same thing. So maybe they make their money, but then lots of bills come out of nowhere. There's something off. So our interior must be in union now for us to manifest holistic wealth. And if we're fractured as a human, we're going to have to overcompensate, over hustle, and be fake to make it.
Yeah.
And then you have addiction, right? Because you're not integrated. For me, if we're chasing money and we're doing it from the superficial level, first of all, you'll never get there. But second of all, you will likely have addiction, because your soul, you don't have inner order.
So you look for
There's a
other
fracture.
substances, other things to numb that feeling of being out of alignment?
Something's off, so I need to check my cell phone every second. I need to hide in relationship. I need to look overly perfect. There's so many ways, shopping, eating, substance, but it's because we know our soul is like something is not, we're not in union, we're not in order, but we're not getting the message. And I think we have trouble pausing because we're like, what if our life falls apart?
People pleasing, all the things that you mentioned before. And it just gets to a point where you're like, no, this isn't going to work, or my life's going to implode, essentially, or my health, or my wealth, or my relationships. Things start to fall apart.
Yes, and for those of us courageous enough and badass enough to surrender right now, the soul is becoming the captain of the ship.
Mhm.
Some things are being reordered or what we think is falling apart, but we don't see the bigger picture. So it's more reordering. So for the ones courageous enough to let that surrender happen and let the things fall that are supposed to fall, there is so much prosperity, so much light, so much amazingness on the way. It's going to be not only so energetically dulling and draining, those people will be unhappy and they will, like you just said, the soul will just shut down and they'll become transactional people. Their field is not bright. It's like a dullness.
What's coming up for me is, and I think if you're listening to this and you're like, what are they even talking about? If you just think of the triad, mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul, or mind, body, heart, whatever that third thing is and however you want to call it, there's something else. It's not just our mind, or not just our body, whatever that other part, if you're ignoring that part of you, it will start to bubble up at some point in your life and scream for attention. Either you're like a total gym rat and all of that. None of those things are bad, by the way. It's just if you're only focused on one or the other and you're ignoring that third part, I think that's where all the integration happens. All of this work you're referring to that we can do to help bring us into alignment. It's not just being in alignment, but like something you said in your podcast is like about using your voice and expressing yourself authentically. Yes.
Well, don't you think it's completely wrong that we are not educated on our field, our biofield, and that the physical layer, our physical body, is a tiny piece of who we are, and the emotional body is never addressed. The mental body is our auric field expands out from us, and the physical level is the most dense, the slowest moving, the most hardened, rigid piece of who we are. But our entire world, we're educated to just focus on that tiny little piece of who we are.
Yeah.
It's why we get to 40, 50, 30, 20 for some people. And it's like something is completely off with how we live.
Yeah.
How many women do you know that are fully in inner peace, inner order, highest health, beautiful prosperity, that are in authentic joy, not bullshit joy or fake joy, where the women are fractured because the way we're conditioned is not only harmful, it's detrimental. And we're just waking up now. This is what we should have learned when we were 5. Because then for me, this is why I'm getting so vocal this year, is because we are conditioned incorrectly. And all we're focused on is develop the intellect, get a hard body, develop the intellect. The intellect is great, but you'll plateau your life if that's all you develop, because you can't hit the higher mind, what I call the super mind. You can't hit the mind that makes your life great. So this is why a lot of people who have highly developed intellects aren't happy, or they have addiction, or they're in miserable relationships. They have all the money, all the great jobs, but they feel wrong.
And a couple weeks ago, I was giving a talk in Tampa and I mentioned, so I'm starting to speak more about our energetic body and that we are mostly energy in my keynotes. Like I started sprinkling it in just to see how people's reaction. And slowly but surely, you'll get folks come up to me after and be like, yeah, or I read that book, or I heard about that. And I mentioned that our energetic field can spread out to 9 feet from our physical bodies. And a woman came up to me after the talk and said, Jennifer, I know you said that your field only goes 9 feet. She said, but I was in the back of the room and I felt your energy and I like burst out into tears. So cool.
But you do have a very healthy, complete magnetic aura. And this is what we need to teach women to do, not just focus on good business or money. What's the point?
Right.
If your field isn't awesome,
Mhm.
why would you focus just on business and money?
Yep.
Let's focus on your field and then watch everything else beautifully come into order without much work. But number one, women don't know this. And number two, they're like, where do I start?
Because there's so much information out there.
Yeah, a simple place to start, like we talked about, we must have a daily spiritual practice. That is how you strengthen your field. So you work up from your energy centers or chakras, however you, from the bottom. And the bottom ones are more in the real world, like living. And then once you get your lifestyle, like your body's healthy, you love what you do, you've got a daily rhythm that's amazing and focused on success, then you can get to the more introspective places. When your breath is disordered, your life is disordered. It works exactly like that. So no one's breathing properly. And there's a million breathwork courses and practitioners. And
Right.
I always say, just pick one,
Yeah.
just breathe, even if it's just some deep breaths in the morning. But you probably within a couple days, life will start to look a little more orderly.
With that, would you, before we start to wrap up, would you lead us through a quick breath practice?
For sure. So again, this is very simple, but if you put your hand on your belly, and again, with yoga and Pilates, they're a little bit different, but this is super simple. All you want to do is close your eyes. And as you take a deep inhale, let your belly expand and fill it up as deep as you can go. And then pause here. And on the exhale, take a strong exhale through the mouth with your hands on your belly. All you have to do is do that 3 times every morning to get started. I've been training all kinds of breath work. You don't have to complicate it. And a lot of the ancient breath work practices are exhale through the nose. But I believe right now we're carrying so much heaviness in our field. We need to get it out through the mouth.
Got it.
So if someone is feeling overburdened, full of anxiety, a deep breath through the mouth, like strong, feel it, hear it, do that every morning. And a lot of people are also feeling so depleted. They got no energy, no life force. So for them, the inhale should be really powerful because they need the breath of life in their body. Sign up for a breathwork workshop. I'm sure there's one in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
But just to start the breathing in the morning and at night will start order in your life.
There's the Breathe app, and you can set it for different things. But again, inhale for 5, and you'll just watch this little flower kind of blossom, and then exhale for 5, and you can do that. That's super simple as well. But
Yeah.
thank you for reminding me about the breath.
That's number one. And then you go to meditation, prayer. Then you go to visualization and movement for sure.
That's the order. That's my morning practice. Exactly the
Love
order.
it.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening who's, I want great prosperity and success this year, you do that every day. We are in this window of time where your physical world will change at super speed.
But honestly, I have been doing it I've been committed now for years. But in the last year and a half, even more, and I am seeing results in my life that feel like magic at times.
You'll see it completely accelerate this year.
I'm
Bring it on.
With that said, thank you so much. I always have 4 rapid fire questions for my guests. Are you ready?
I think so.
When you were a kid, what was your favorite food?
Spaghetti.
If you can have a drink with anyone, dead or alive, doesn't have to be alcoholic, who would it be and what's in your cup?
My goodness, that one's fun. I think I would want to meet with someone who's inventing a solution for a global issue, like some amazing invention for no countries to have water issues or something really big, or somebody who is going to make this world have no violence or war. The people that are doing that behind the scenes that we don't know their names,
Yeah.
I'd love to have a conversation with one of those beautiful souls.
And a drink. What's in the drink?
I don't drink, so it'd probably be like sparkling water with lime.
Great. Okay. What's your favorite self-help book of all time?
Well, that's a tricky one. I have to say, one of the ones that really opened my mind to a new way of living was The Seed of the Soul. I also always come back to the Four Agreements, always.
And last but not least, what's your favorite song your hype song that gets you out of bed?
My kids love this song, Calm Down with Selena Gomez, and it gets to the on every day, and I do, and does make me happy.
We thank you so much for your wisdom, your joy, your advice for us all. And where can everyone find you?
So my community is spiritualsociety.com and on Instagram at Lee Marie Jacobs.
Lee Marie Jacobs. Thank you so much again. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. If you would be so kind, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, comment on our Instagram. Just let us know if this hits. If you have any questions, and just know that we love you and can't wait to hear your feedback. Thanks so much, and goodbye.